Hey, Michael, cover that.
Hey, Michael.
Kind of feeling like graveyard up in this camp. My name is Michael, and I am a recovered addict. And every time I say that in a meeting, oftentimes it takes me back to when I first got clean, and somebody would use the word recovered, and then I got into the literature and found out in the literature it says the old adage of once an addict, always an addict is a lie. We do recover. And when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm immune from ever having to go out again, or that I'm immune from being an addict, or I separate myself from the disease. It just means that I have recovered from that seemingly hopeless state of mind that I came up in here with. Because when I came up in here, I was looking for something to relieve the pain of what I was in, the way that I felt, the demoralization, the degradation, just the demeaning way that I have looked at myself in the mirror. My clean date is February 19th, 1988. I've been blessed with 32 years of continuous clean time. And I'm more than grateful to not just Narcotics Anonymous, but I'm grateful to God and anybody else who's walked along beside me that has helped me to get down this path. I've not done it by myself. If it weren't for Narcotics Anonymous to help me begin the journey, my journey would probably still be stuck somewhere down in a hole somewhere and feeling mighty bad. And I guess I'll qualify. I'm the kind of addict that did any and everything. I was selective when I had money. I wasn't as selective when I didn't have money. If I had it, I did it. If I didn't have it and you had it, I'd do it. Even if I'd never done it, I'd do it. And I remember that certain things at certain times, they would say, well, if you do this, you'll get addicted. If you do this, you'll see things and blow your brains out. And, and your babies will come out deformed. And they had things on TV where they fried eggs in the skillet and said, this is your brain and with an egg, and then they drop it in the skillet, and this is your brain on drugs. And none of that stuff registered to me. And just didn't fit my mold, because I was a man, and they asked me for a topic, and it's like the first, third, and 11th step for me is what I put it down with, and simply being, it just means surrender, because all three of those steps are coupled with surrender steps, and it took me to surrender to get here, to begin the journey. I had to give up me in order to begin a life, and I found myself on that last night. They say to me, if you forget your last outage, you're doomed to repeat it. And I want to share my last outage with you. It was standing on a corner after 3 days, wiping cheese off my teeth, and it wasn't cheese bought out the store. My armpits were sticky, my toes were sticky, butt crack sticky, everything about me. I hadn't shaved or washed in 3 or 4 days. And I was finding myself panhandling a quarter to call the police on myself. And I came into the program and I relapsed the first 3 months. I relapsed after 35 days. I relapsed after 28 days, and I relapsed after 21 days. And I had came and I began to feel good, and then all of a sudden the disease would hit me, and I wouldn't do any of the things that had been suggested of me. I didn't call anybody before I went out. I didn't go to a meeting. I didn't pray. A fella told me one time, say, if you get on your knees, it's hard to get to the dope, man. The thing is, for me, was being able to stay on my knees, you know what I'm saying? Because the disease got a big tug. It had a big tug in my life. It always was just pulling me up. And whatever time of day or night, whether I had to go to work, didn't have to go to work, whether it was late, whether it was early, whether kids need to be fed, whether the bills needed to be paid, none of the above. If the disease said let's, and I would counteract it with, I can't afford it. It would say, you got some tools in the garage you could sell. Or it'd say, you could sell your watch. And then it would say, you could rent your car out to somebody. It would tell me all these methods of madness that it would take for me to drag me down the street. And I'd always go down the street thinking I'm just gonna do one, and I could never do just one. I'd always do more than one. And I'd find myself days later, and at the end of the road, I found myself calling the police on me, being taken to a county mental health facility, giving them a bogus name. And then at the end of the day, they told me what my real name was. And they never took my fingerprints. And to this day, I don't know how it is that they came up with my right name. I don't ever remember seeing anybody in that facility that knew who I was. I just know that they came up with my right name. And I was telling them I've got PTSD. And they said, no, your problem is crack cocaine. And I tried to convince them of that. And they said, no, your problem is crack cocaine. We're going to send you out to the VA. And so they sent me out to the VA. And I'm originally from California, and that's where I first began my clean journey. And they sent me out there, and I got out there and told them, y'all need to send me up on the 4th floor because I'm suffering from PTSD. And they said, no, your problem is crack cocaine. And we're going to give you a token, and when you go get on the bus, and you go down to the county facility where they house the homeless, and you spend it, and then the next morning you get up and you go to this place called Salvation Army. Now, mind you, I'd been in the program 3 months, but had relapsed. But my mind was still thinking about what I had heard and how I had heard it, and whether or not this thing would work for me. And I was considering this thing all the way on the bus. And I got downtown and went into this facility, and found myself in San Diego homeless shelter. They had 4 beds stacked high in bunk fashion, and had a room probably 100 feet long, 4 rows deep. They heard you in there. Everybody got buck naked. They heard you through the showers, put you on a back out road. Then you go get into bed, and I found myself laying on my back in there, looking around and saying, how did I wind up here? I had a wife, I had kids, and I'd always had a sense of pride, but I had lost any ability to control anything, you know? There was nothing to control. My ex-wife used to say to me, she'd say, if you loved us, you wouldn't be doing this. And I loved them. I love my wife, I love my kids, but the disease would say, let's go. And he would just drag me down the road. And I'd find myself down the road, and 3 days later, sitting on the porch outside, listening to them inside, running around, stomping and having fun and laughing, you know, and one more time, Dad, the husband, the caretaker, then did it again, you know what I'm saying? And I remember going in and being off into the house and getting into bed, and I'd wait till later the kids go to sleep and everything calmed down before I go in though, because I couldn't face anybody. And I go in, and when I did finally face the music, and she said something and said all of what she needed to say, and I got into bed, and I just lay there and be still and just be afraid, and afraid to move, because I didn't want nobody to see me. I didn't want her to see me. I didn't want her to know I was awake. You know, I didn't want her to say anything. I just felt like that would keep her from saying anything to me. You know, and the next morning I remember laying there, just eyeballs turning yellow, having to pee, because I just didn't want to get up. I didn't want to face nobody. Didn't want to see nothing. Didn't want to hear nothing. You know, and so that's the way I wound up being here. And it wasn't until I stopped and said to myself, and I can never say how it was that the total surrender came, you know, because I can say surrender. I can say, you know, I quit that stuff, because I've done it many times. I'd quit. I wasn't going to do this no more. I'm not going to, this is the last time, you know, I'm not going to do this, or I'm only going to do a little bit. And it would just never occur for me, you know, and I don't know what it is that last time broke in me, but I was broken to the point where I became willing to do one of the things that they told me here, willing to do what the dying man would do. You know what I'm saying? And that's follow suggestions. And following suggestions is hard when you got a man that got a beard on his face. You know, I done been in the military and traveled the world. You know, I got hair on my chest. I'm a man. I'd never been knocked out. You know what I'm saying? Never been beat up. This is this macho thing, you know? Sometimes I say and refer to myself as, you know, I came in here Macho Bob, and that disease degraded me to Puddin' Pete. And the program allows me to remain as Puddin' Pete. And what I mean by that is I don't have to fight anything and everybody all the time. You know, the program, the steps, my surrendering helped me to cease and desist from fighting anything and everybody most of the time, because I still got an ego. It's like sky high. And if I don't maintain it and not do things that would increase the ego, then I'd be in trouble. You know, I can get lost into me. You know, so that surrendering in that first step that I did when I got here, my first sponsor said to me, he said, surrender to win. And then he said, if the Japanese had won the war, we'd all be driving Japanese cars and watching Japanese TV. And this was in the 80s. And at that time, the Japanese cars was on the market, the TVs and everything. They were selling everything and anything here. You know what I'm saying? They was buying up Hawaii. It made sense. You know, it's like, even though they lost the war, they were winning. You know, it's like, wow. You know, you know, there's a lot of wow moments that I've gotten here since I've been here, you know, that stuck to me. You know, like the man said to me, he said, you know, you can't get to the door, man, if you're on your knees. And I remember getting on my knees after that relapse. And I'll go back even because after I got up that morning and then wound up in Salvation Army, I wound up there in Salvation Army and standing in line, there was a man that had 13 years. And he said, you know, I've just relapsing after 13 years. And he said, I spoke on the circuit for a long time. And I got to the point where I thought I was getting people clean. You know, he says, my ego got the best of me. You know, and I was like, oh, okay. And I just listened to him and I heard that. And it's like, so that let me know that one day at a time is really essential to take a mindset to, you know, and that I'm not immune from ever doing it. And I've heard of people going out after 30 years. I've heard of people going out after 35 years. You know, it's all I know is I got here and I'm through for the day and I don't know what I am. You know, I'm not God. I can't see into the future. I'd like to say so, but I know that I can't. You know, so, but while sitting up into that place, I was presented with an option by something that just visited my mind. It was an unseen force that visited my mind that said, you can sit here and watch this TV or you can go up and read a book. And that book was good. And I just had a meal. I mean, the TV was good. I'm sorry. I was watching TV, a program. And little boy said, we can go upstairs and read the book. I kind of shook it off and he said it again. And I reluctantly got up and I went upstairs and began to read the book. And I remembered something somebody had said to me when I was before my relapses, and I said to him, I said, well, you know what, man? I said, you know, I'll be trying to read that book, but I get sleepy. He said, well, stand up and read. You won't go to sleep. I was like, oh, okay. And so what he did is he removed my excuse for not being able to get involved in his program, you know? And I remember telling somebody, say, well, call somebody, anybody before you go use. So, well, yeah, I don't remember what Facebook with that name. And I don't remember who it was. And what if I don't like them? And he said, well, it don't matter because they come from the same place you come from. Just call somebody, anybody. It doesn't matter. So, you know, all my excuses that I come up with, there was always somebody there who would knock it down, you know, and it took me back to the very beginning of my brother had gotten clean. And I remember rocking his big old Cadillac. He had this big old Cadillac with the hole cut out in the roof and had the diamond in the top. And I remember bouncing on it, trying to keep him from slamming some dope. And he got with the motion and slammed it anyway. But he had gotten clean. And when I had a conversation with him, he said to me, he trying to tell me go to meetings or go through talking about the process of the program. And I kept coming up with these excuses. And he said to me, he said, look, man, he said, do 90 meetings in 90 days and we'll gladly refund the misery that you come in here with. And then he walked off from me, you know, and it's like, it just left me with that wow moment. You know, I had nothing else to say. There was nothing else to debate, nothing else to argue about, you know, none of the above, you know. And so I had gotten to that point where I got up, went there up there, started reading. Then I found myself, they gave me a chore to do. And in the chore, I was a spray painter. I've spray painted cars and spray painted gel coat and bolts and fancy stuff and furniture and all the above. And had a little booth in there with a spray booth, and they gave me some furniture to spray and refinish. And I'm off in there and I got the radio on and James Brown playing and Kool and the Gang and whoever else. And I'm dancing and floating. And then a little voice said, you need to turn to one of them stations where it do you some good. Don't nobody want to listen to no other stations be talking about God or listen to other station talking about family affairs. And that just wasn't the cool guys, you know? And so I changed the channel and I started listening to some other stuff that was enriching to my spirit, to my person, you know, that was planting things in me, seeds in me that would grow into something, you know, other than a dance, you know, other than the thought of some dope. You're quite welcome, bro. Other than using some dope, you know. So I turned that channel, and after a while, I sat up and I said to myself, I said, okay, God, I'm not going to leave this place until you show me it's time to go. And I really had no consideration of what or expectation of him showing me anything or me actually seeing anything. So after 30 days, I had this prayer one night. And after 30 days, during that 30 days, I was reading, I was up, and they had a big bathroom with a chair and table in there. And I'd go in that big bathroom and I'd be reading. And people get up in the middle of the night and they'd be like, you still up? And I'd be in there reading. And in the morning, they get up and I'm still reading. And I'd get up early and I'd go to bed late. And I just immersed myself in this book, you know what I'm saying, in the literature, in the basic text. And I began to pray. And after 30 days, I made that prayer. And I said, God, just show me where I am in recovery. And I wasn't looking for, expecting him to show me anything, but I had a dream that night. And in that dream, I seen this empty cup. And I came to, I call it come to, because it wasn't like a regular normal dream. And I didn't even remember the prayer that I had prayed. And I didn't associate the dream with the prayer. And the second night, that cup appeared again. And then that cup showed up. And that cup was half full of gold coins. And I came to again, and I didn't associate that prayer with the dream. And third night, I came to sitting straight up in bed, and this cup was full of gold coins, and the gold coins was just overflowing. You know what I'm saying? And then this little voice inside of me said, it's time for you to go home. And it told me around here, they said, do anything, call somebody. Ask anybody besides your own brain. Your brain is your worst enemy. And they had to teach me that. They had to drill that into me, because see, if I thought something, it meant it was something, I mean, it was factual. If I thought something, what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, or that's what you were doing, or that's what you weren't doing, you know. And so I had to take my ideas so that they could correct my thinking, you know. And I found since I've been here, it's like I can't think my way into better living. I have to live my way into better thinking, you know. And that's the only way that I've been able to make it. But I called somebody and they said, let me pray about it. And they prayed about it, and they called back down there, and they said, yeah, it's time for you to go home. And it's like, oh, okay. Now, I had committed to a 9-month program, and I don't suggest this to any newcomers. This is my experience, my strength, and my hope, and my story. You know, so you get your own story. This mine's mine, yours is yours. You know, and so I went home, but when I got home, there was a woman there with the wife. She was a friend of the family, and she just had this big fearful look on her face. And she said to me, she said, what are you doing here? I said, I had a dream about you last night, and I dreamed that you were dead. And I've seen you in the casket and everything. And that's been 32 years ago that woman had that dream, you know. And since that time, I've had other experiences, you know, that have caused me and helped me to surrender to an unseen force, you know, and that surrendering to the surrendering to unseen forces, for me, God. You know, which takes me to the third step in making a decision, turn my will and life over to the care of God as I understand him. You know, and when I first got here, you know, I heard a lot about God, and I heard some people say, oh, don't say the word God because it'll run the newcomer off. And somebody said, well, you know, you say God, that dope will run them back up in here. They'll be back. You know, and so I became less sensitive about what and how I associated with people. You know, the very first meeting I had been to, was a man that had handed me a chip, and on it said God loves you, you know. And I know that's not NA approved, but this is what this man used to do, run and hand newcomers certain things to inspire them, you know what I'm saying. And I call them stick-to-its. You know, the things that happened to me in recovery that have stuck to me, that have helped me to remind me that I need to surrender, you know, to remind me that I don't need to pick up. I've had 19 years, and 19 years riding down the street, commercial came on about some coke. I could taste it. I could feel it. I got the rush about it. And it was like I was just there. You know, and when I was 20-something, looking in the mirror, that crack cocaine came to my nose, and it came to my taste, and it came to my feeling, just as though I had just done it. But they told me around here, you're not responsible for your thoughts, only your actions. that was a stick to it moment for me. That was a moment that I heard something that allows me to help surrender to that moment, just for that particular thing right there. You know, and then the third step, between the first and the third step, is I was going to meetings to go wherever people were trying to find God or wherever people were trying to live. And I began to hear things and I began to pray, even if I didn't feel like I was praying right, I just did it anyway, you know, and things changed, things slowly changed. My mind began to change. My desire began to change. You know, I found myself sitting there watching TV and Star Trek's on. Y'all probably old enough to know what Star Trek is. If you don't, you missed a good show. But Star Trek would be on, and it's time for the meeting. It's like, Star Trek or the meeting, Star Trek or the meeting. So I got up to meet. I surrendered to what I had been told around it. Meeting makers make it. You know, put your recovery first. You know, those are I heard that I began to hear when I wanted to do my thing, when I wanted to do it my way. You know, because see, in my will is my action. You know, and it's my actions that is my will, the things that I do. And so as the things that I do or did changed because of people in Narcotics Anonymous and my surrendering to the things we're doing around here. You know, they told me, if you're not praying, throw your shoes under the bed. When you get down there to get them, you remember to pray. You know, and so I began to do those things. You know, because that last outing for me was like, it was just devastating. You know, and I was whipped into submission that when I came back, I became willing to stay clean. And so I began to go to the meeting before the meeting, and I'd get to the meeting, I'd help make coffee, I'd help put up chairs. Back then they used to smoke in the meeting, and back then I used to smoke too, so I'd still help with the cigarette butts and the cigarette things. And, you know, and for me, that was always beneath me. You know what I'm saying? That was other people lower than my work. You know, that's the attitude I had about it, you know. And but I had to surrender myself and humble myself to some things, you know. Had to get a sponsor and humble myself to the sponsor to let him share with me my thought, the steps as I took the steps, as I began to talk about the steps, and as I sat out there with friends that would take me home, and we'd sit out there in my driveway till 2 o'clock in the morning talking about this and talking about that, and what's God's will for you, man? I don't know what's God's will for me. It's like, you know, are we powerless? I began to see that my life is unmanageable. Yeah, your life's unmanageable, man. You got 2 cars in the backyard, $50 to fix either one of them, and they've been sitting up for 6 months, and you're making money, you know. I never made pennies. I smoked up a business, and then I smoked up my job. You know what I'm saying? It was just slow deterioration. You know, when I came here, I was 34 years old. You know, I had a wife, had 4 kids, a house, 2 cars, and the disease had me by the legs, and it just would not let me function in the way that I wanted to function. You know, the dreams that I'd had died. The hopes that I'd had were diminished because my hope only turned into just being able to get money to get that next one, to balance that money, to keep the lights on so she wouldn't know something, so that they wouldn't know something, so I could get in between, get the kids' school clothes and blah, 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 blah. And just a lot of work, man. And when I got here, man, life just got easier. You know, I surrendered and I began to win in life. And in that third step, and as I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to care of God as I understand him, you know, I went places to get different understanding of what God is all about. And I'm a man that I checked into Buddhism and the Muslims and the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Catholics and the Baptists and the Pentecostals and the people that believed in space people. And I looked at a whole lot of stuff, man. I'm an avid reader. I read stuff, you know, and if it's in my face, I read it. If I got topics, I read about it, you know. And so I had searched out a lot of different things. And then somebody said to me, said, just keep it simple, man. So what you do is you go home, you write it on a piece of paper, and you put down there what it is that you want under God. You know, just love him, write that down there. You want a God that's forgiving, write that down. You know, do you need a God to spank you every now and then? Oh, yeah, I do, but that's a frightening thought. They'd be chastised, you know what I mean? I had a daddy that was 6'5", a Marine, you know what I'm saying? You know, and he didn't play, you know, and my mama, I'd rather my daddy get me than my mama. So they was both tough cookies is what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? Play. He's like, go get a switch, get two of them. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, and they get me. You know, I came up in the era where you came home, got out your school clothes, and you just automatically had been trained to go outside. You do not stay in the house. Get out from under this house. Get out from under my feet. Get outside. I drank out of the water hose. You know what I'm saying? I played in the streets. You know, and when the street lights came on, I knew where I was supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? Anxiety entered into me when you talk about chastisement. So when you talk about a God that's going to chastise me, to put this on a piece of paper, that's opening myself up to something that I might not want to suffer the wrath of. But I did it because I began to believe that discipline I'd lost. I'd lost discipline. I talked about having traveled. I've been in the military. I was in the Army, been trained in martial arts, played football, played baseball, played all them things that men play that you just don't surrender to, you don't give up on, you don't say uncle to, you just don't quit. Real men keep going, you know, you just keep struggling, you know, no matter what it is or how it is, you know, and I came up in the era where John Wayne, you know, toted 50 calibers in his teeth, you know, stormed the hills against 9,000 people, and it's only him live, and I watched the airplanes come on at 2 o'clock in the morning with the TV off, and they played the national anthem, and it just juiced me up, and I wanted to join the military, and I had a lot of that behavior in me that had been instilled in me, you know what I'm saying? That real men, that's what real men do. Real men drink hard, act hard. You know, you just keep it up. You just keep up the facade, no matter what you feel like. You know, no matter how you feel, that's what you do. You know, you can be scared to death, but you're still supposed to push through and can't nobody see it. You know, and I got here and they told me, you know what, it's okay to surrender. It's okay to be a wimp. It's okay not to have to stick your chest out. My first men's meeting that I went to, I put on a tank top, because back then I was like 34 years old and I was a little more cut than I am now, you know, but I put it on, you know what I'm saying? You know, so I could flex when I went, show my man, you know, and that's how I went to my first men's meeting. You know, I put on a pair of boots, you know, because you need to know I was hard. You know, I needed to present myself in what I perceived was supposed to present himself to another man, so that I didn't feel like you were going to take advantage of me. I could not let that happen. You know, and they got here and he's like, I found out that the men here, they weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to help me, you know. And I found out that, you know, that if I change my playmates, playgrounds, and play toys and surrender to the nonsense of excitement, then I can find the thing of peace. I can find serenity. I can find a calmness, you know, if I just get on the other side, you know, which takes me to, in my surrender in early days between that first and third step of having a dream. And in that dream, I found myself like in a school bathroom that had a low wall. On this side, these people were walking around all peaceful. And I was on this side that was just chaotic. And when you look this way, there was 2 doors that was divided, and you can see the back end of the police car on my side, the side they put you in, and you see the front side of the police car on this side where the calm people were. And something kept saying to me, if you just get over there, you'll find peace. If you get over there, you'll be safe. And that's what happened for me here. And that was a dream, you know, and for me, that dream was one of them stick to it moments, you know, that I was reminded periodically. I remembered that dream periodically in the course of my travels, that if I stay over here in this lane of recovery, if I stay focused on the steps, if I stay focused on the principles that I've learned, you know, if I stay focused on learning and not having to express what might be believed to be the overblown manhood, then I can stay at peace with people. I can stay, most importantly, myself. You know, how many minutes? 3? Okay, sounds good to me. But time flies. You know, I could talk about recovery forever and a day, and because this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. You know, at 11th step, I've continued to seek through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand him. And I've had some miraculous experiences that I share with some, don't share with all. And I'm getting better at sharing with, because a lot of people look at you like, yeah, right, okay. Yeah, you really had that experience. Okay. You know, but I just found myself having to surrender that and give it up. You know, I'm no longer what I was, and I'm not who I am to be. You know, and even on a daily basis, even with 32 years, I'm still finding myself having to surrender to me. I'm having to find myself to surrender to other people so that my mindset can change. I don't struggle with anything and everybody. Most of the time it has to do with the wife or the kids, where my biggest struggles are in life. But the struggling with the bosses and people in the rooms and all that stuff is diminished, you know, for the most part. And I don't struggle with the wife and the kids and their family as I used to, you know, because I'm not doing the things that I used to do. I'm thankful to God that Narcotics Anonymous is here. You know, I like big meetings. I like little meetings. I like any kind of they have today. It'll be a one-on-one meeting or just a me meeting. You know, I'm gonna share this in closing. You know, if they told me if I abandon myself to this program, benefits from it. If you surrender, you win. And I remembered having started a meeting and nobody showed at the meeting. And my sponsor said to me, he says, well, are you? I said, yeah. He said, well, you just read while you're there at the meeting. And I stopped and I stayed at that meeting. And it was 2, 3, 4 months before anybody began to come. And today is one of the largest meetings that they have in San Diego as far as Narcotics Anonymous, you know, just because I stuck and stayed. You know, I thank y'all for allowing me and be a part of your recovery.